So you can begin.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, yes, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, yes. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. You can continue.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, really, I must respect and thanks to the organizing committee for giving the opportunity to welcome you all. Looking at the number of participants, really we all can understand the value of this event. I think up to now we have completed the 6 event, and I think the organizing committee mentioned that to get the positive feedback. Actually, the main focusing of this kind of event is really improve your research skills. You know that doing research or engaging research is a very challengeable and complex task. That is not the simple task. I think so. Having this kind of dialogue, I believe that we all can improve our research confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, without taking much time, I directly move to the welcome speech. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to the research program conducted by the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka in association with Emerald Publishing and the Gulf Medical University, United Arab Emirates. So you know this is the 7th webinar of the Writing Impactful Research Program. With a great respect, let me first welcome the speaker of this session, Dr. Moon Moon Haque, from the College of Healthcare Management and Economics, Gulf Medical University. Today, he is discussing on how to select a suitable journal, which is a timely topic. Dr. Moon Moon Haque is presently working as an associate dean and the associate professor at the College of Healthcare Management and Economics, Gulf Medical University in UAE. Dr. Haque earned his PhD in applied economics degree from the Portchilman College of Business and Economics, University of Memphis, Tennessee, USA. He also completed the master degree in applied economics from the same university and another master degree in economics from the Vishwa Bharati University, India. The Dr. Haque is well-trained applied microeconomic, special in health and healthcare economics and labor economics, and applied quantitative analysis, and proficiently acquainted with the relevant statistical programming languages to perform empirical research. Dr. Haque also served as the editor-in-chief Asia Pacific Journal of Management Research and Innovation, which is the SAGE publication. In his 10+ years of academic career, his research agenda mostly focused on evaluation of state policy for societal economic development and its efficient management. The immediate future he would like to go with the field of experiment in the reliance of social norm in the healthcare sector. In the long run, he sees himself working on expanding his expertise in this area by a mixture of experimental and experiment work. Ladies and gentlemen, with the gratitude, let me also welcome today the panelists, the Professor Athula Gnanapala, Dean of the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, and Professor MSM Aslam, Chairman of the Research and Publication Unit, the Faculty of Management Studies, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. Then, with the gratitude, let me welcome our regional coordinators of this webinar, Dr. Jayantha N. Dewasiri, Senior Lecturer, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, Ms. Sangeeta Menon, Publishing Relationship Manager, Emerald Publishing, Professor Sudhai Rana from Gulf Medical University, and Professor Kasif Said, GIFT University in Pakistan. In fact, they supported a lot in making this program a great success. Then, with the gratitude, let me also welcome Ms. Disha Lakhanpal, the Regional Marketing Manager, Emerald Publishing Group. Then, with a great respect, I would like to welcome all the distinguished participants from the Emerald Publishing, Gulf Medical University, and the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. At last, but of course not least, the audience. Mainly our academics from all of the universities worldwide, senior professors, senior lecturers, and the lecturers, the students, and the researchers are welcome to this program for making session lively. Thank you, Professor Amila and the Dr. Jayantha. It is over to you.
So Dr. Moon Moon, it is over to you.
Yeah, okay. I don't see. Okay, show my screen.
So we are able to see
We
your
can
screen
see.
now. We are able to see your screen, or you just need to start the slideshow. That's all. Wonderful.
Okay. So everybody can see the slides?
Yes, sir.
So you can see.
Okay.
So just click on the screen anywhere and you'll be able to go to the next slide.
I don't see the slide actually.
Sir, have you minimized? If you can just check where the go to webinar option is coming. Oh, you have paused your screen, I think. I'll give you the rights again. 1 second.
Okay.
Just say yes, please.
Mhm.
Yeah, your slideshow is. Can you just push escape once? Or Alt Tab. If you can just press Alt Tab, you'll be able to see all the screens that are open.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
Now you can see it, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes, we can see it. Go ahead.
Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever people you are. So this is a nice initiative that's been undertaken with the Emerald publication as well as Gulf Medical University and Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. And like to take this opportunity to thank for such a long and detailed introduction by Professor Dharmarathna, the head and in the Department of Economics and Commerce. I would like to thank Dr. Sudhirana, Jai, I forgot the name honestly, and other all the stakeholders for bringing this opportunity to the research forum. And so that of course we after all we are not born with all the skill set, all the knowledge that we need. We learn along the way. So if there is a platform and people can learn it without paying any fees, so that's a wonderful thing. And of course, I'd like to thank as well as congratulate Emerald Publications for bringing this such platform to the research audience. So today what we'll be talking about is like one of the basic idea for a budding researcher or someone just enter the research field or doing their PhDs, doing independent consultant, like what we can do to help them out in bringing publication and bringing their research output into the public domain. So in order to do that, we need to need to keep in mind certain aspects of publication. So today we are going to talk about like how to choose or how to select a journal which is very much suitable for your publication. Uh, So the objective for today is deciding on the fit levels of your journal. Like that means what? So each journal has certain criteria and how your research is going to fit to the journal requirement. Second thing is there are differentiating aspects of expectation from different journals, what they expect and how you can match it with the journal expectation. Because if there is no match, then eventually your paper is not going to get published or is going to get rejected, and that would be a huge disappointment for a researcher after putting those efforts, long nights, etc., and it's get rejected. So it's very hard. What do we say? It's very sad. So today is like, let me talk about like me. I'm Moon Haque. I'm the Associate Dean and Associate Professor at the College of Healthcare Management and Economics, Gulf Medical University. So I did my PhD from the University of Memphis, and that's my email address. Like people can reach out to me if they wish, or they can find me in the website to have any further queries after this session is over. So it's a platform. We want to get connected with the researchers, try to help each out, so that like our research community becomes stronger and become much more viable. All right. So thank you. Without much ado, let's begin. So most of you, I think, is familiar with the term or with the phrase or with the aphorism, is that publish or perish. So there are some good things or perceived benefits of having a publication or being able to publish, and there is some consequence, unintended consequence, not to able to publish in academia or in higher studies. In fact, publish and perish on that particular aphorism. There is a book came out with by the author Imad A. Musa in 2018. It was published. He's a senior professor in an Australian university. It has been published from ELCAT. So he detailed through his journey of life and how the publish or perish culture has influenced the overall academia, overall success rate, overall professional growth of the individual, what is the pain they need to go through, that he describes in a nice, lucid, polite way. So we know that there are two ways to survive. One is these days research is given very much important from university perspective. It's ranking, promotion, growth of an individual. At the same time, there are few universities in the world, mostly in the developed countries, where they have teaching track faculty. So they are excellent like teachers. So probably they don't focus too much on research, or even if they do, it is like more of a educational research, not like proper scientific research. Now, given that we live in a world of harsh reality, and we need to publish in order to because that's one of the success mantra of being successful in academic life. And these days, all the accreditation bodies, whether domestic accreditation bodies, national accreditation bodies, or international accreditation bodies, they are giving 20, 25, 30% weightage for publication, faculty publications, grants. Now, given that publication is an important aspect of academic life, uh, but how you're going to start your publication journey? So we know that from PhD or even from masters, the people start writing, but sometimes those writings are novice. Sometimes you need a little bit professional guidance, how to improve your writing, and like what are the aspects you look at in order to publish. Of course, you can publish in newspapers where the formats and all those things are not that much relevant, but in each journal, the format, styling, referencing, everything is certain patterns they follow, and you need to follow it. Otherwise, it is be a disaster, or you will feel the bad luck that why my paper got rejected. We are going to talk about that in the later slides. Throat, and I might get you disturbed sometimes because I need to sneeze or cough. Don't worry, it's not corona. It's just that like I was under the AC yesterday, and the cool was hitting me directly, and that might be the reason. Okay, so without like doing any delay, so how or why we are going to need a publication? Of course, we know that if you want to publish, you should publish in a peer review journal. We are going to talk about what peer review means, and then we are going to talk about, and of course, there should be a right audience for your publications. That means you will be able to reach to the people who is willing to read your work. And why we need to do it? Because of career advancement, professional reputation, funding opportunities. Like if you are a novice and you are applying for funding nationally or internationally, unless you have a reputation of a good researcher, probably they are not going to fund you, even if you have an excellent proposal, because those things taken care of when they do this kind of allocations of funds. So there are a few criteria that we are going to discuss today in the next few slides, which is going to talk about, or which is very much important from a researcher's perspective and from a manuscript submission perspective. So those are the things that we should keep in mind, and we are going to. Now, most of you heard that there are two ways or two avenues to publish. One is open access, the another is closed access or traditional way of publishing. Open access is got prudence of late, or popularity of late. Like what are the pitfalls, or what are the draws, or what are the benefits, and what are the pitfalls that footholds that are associated to open access. We are going to talk about in few minutes. But mostly closed access traditional journal is that's what we are looking at. In most of the cases, they are free of cost. You don't need to pay anything. Sometimes we think that, okay, if you are paying for a publication, that means the quality is not up to the mark. So that's a perception. So if you want to get rid of that perception, sometimes you can, or sometimes it's the person who is looking at your CV. It depends on his or her mindset. So there are three ways you can look at. One is predatory journals, other is trusted journal, but they are not listed in some of the well accepted indexing, whether it's Scopus, Web of Science, and there are journals who are listed in Scopus as well as Web of Science. Of course, there is other listing in different fields, in management, in science, in management like ADCB, Australian Dean's Council, predatory journals. Now, this is where any researcher should be very much careful of. Predatory journals is a, I would say, bad reputation for a researcher that it can create. So we should be always careful about predatory journals for publishing. Now we are going to talk about like what predatory journal is, how we are going to detect a predatory journal, research paper. The other aspect is trusted journals, but some of are like paid. Those it's you need to pay a fees, that article processing charges that the journal uh, charge for publishing a paper, and this is like when it is being accepted, then you need to pay. There are other submission fee as well for some of the journals, and they don't ask for sub article processing fees. There are closed access. So closed access is basically author doesn't need to pay anything, but it is more of a subscription based model, because after all they are running a business as well. So there are lots of debates going on in the developed countries, because like countries like India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, or some of the Asian countries where we are putting more focus on research, we don't have access to all the journals in different fields, and we have limited access, and that's why we try to go to different sources or try to download different articles through different means, which is unethical and illegal, but we still do it because we cannot afford to. Some journals is like $300-400, and from a Indian perspective or for a Sri Lankan perspective, it's too much for one individual if some individual researcher is doing some research. Open access, on the other hand, is that you need to pay for publication, and of course it goes through the same peer review process. Of course, it's being little quick compared to the closed access journals. So what are the factors that we should look into open access and closed access? So there are four major factors that we should be focusing on before choosing a journal. First thing, visibility. Now, when you talk about visibility, it's being found, or it's being observed that the open access channels are 89%, whereas text downloads, whereas PDF downloads are 42% higher. Unique visitor to the open access channel is 23% higher compared to the subscription based, or that means closed access channels. So in terms of visibility, open access channels is very much getting popularity of late, and at the same time you need to remember that citation, like when you publish a paper, you need your paper gets cited. That means what the other people are giving you credit that something important to the research field has been contributed by the authors, and that citation index is taken as a proxy for how much contribution you have done to the field, whether it's management, whether it's economics or medicine or pharmacy or physics or any other field. So that's why these days people are also moving towards open access channels because of citation. Because citation also is one of the indicators that how good you are in your own field. Next is Cost. So of course, from a developing countries or less developed countries, it's very difficult to afford such kind of high fees. But of course, some of the journals don't charge that much, like 2,000, $3,000. They are $100 to $250. So in that cases, sometimes what happened, they also accept for partial or full waivers of acceptance fees, or if you belong to a particular country, so as per the United Nations list, the bottom 30 countries list, they waive the fees, and I don't think India falls in that category. I think Sri Lanka is there in that category. So if someone is from Sri Lanka and who is the main corresponding author, they can ask for, or they can request for waiver of the article processing fees. Prestige of the journal. Prestige of the journal is very much important. Some researchers is more reluctant to publish in open access channel, because they feel that their scholarly works might be perceived as of lower quality. But these days, the perception is getting changed. Of course, it will take time when people will treat both open access and the closed access channel equally. So that's one thing that every researcher should give, whether they want to go for it. Of course, each type of publication avenue has their own pitfalls. The next is like CV of a journal. Of course, when we say CV from an individual, the CV from a journal's perspective as well. So there are four aspects that we talk about CV of a journal. Okay, who is the editor and how does the editorial board looks like? Is the journal being published from a university, or is it published from a publication house, or is it published from a society, like renowned society? And then we look at, okay, what is the impact factor of the channel? If it has, of course, there are some good channels which is still yet to have impact factors, but they are very popular in different fields. So it's not necessary that you should always look for impact factor, because impact factor takes 1 year to get recorded by Web of Science every year. So if some journal has a low impact factor, that doesn't necessarily mean that it will not be high impact factor in the upcoming years. And second thing is, try to talk to your professors, talk to your seniors, try to talk to your established colleague, that like how or what's your opinion about this journal? What is the acceptance rate of this channel? Do you have any comment, positive or negative, about this? So those kind of aspects gives a boost for a channel. So that's prestige, and CV is very much important when you like search for your publications. Speed, that's another important aspect. How long or how quickly your publication or how often the journal is being published. Is it like half yearly? Is it yearly? Is it quarterly? Is it monthly? Is it like bi-monthly? Like what is the frequency? Is it like weekly? Normally weekly we don't see any scientific journals, and if they are, those are mostly predatory journals. So most of the scientific research, they always looked at the speed at which, because within 6 months the data become obsolete. Think about like those vaccine and related publications that are coming out in vaccine related, COVID related, how fast they move. Maybe those are monthly journals, but these are all well accepted across the world compared to the closed access journals. So those, but on the other hand, in some of the clinical trials where like almost 2 years waiting time, because you might come up with an adverse impact of the clinical trial. So that's why the publication in peer review journal related to clinical trials or drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, sometimes they take longer time to get published. Of course, the claim today and claim after 2 years might not be similar. So the editors goes through a rigorous peer review process and wait for any adverse impact that might have. So that's why speed is another important factor. So if you submit a paper and after 6 months or after 1 year it gets rejected, so at least like you are going to lose 1 year of your life. And in the meanwhile, the data become obsolete as well. Sometimes in some cases, the data has become like really old in 1 year. However, we should be like when we are making a judgment about the open access channels. The traditional method, it takes a long time because there are a number of articles that could be published in a volume. Space limitations, like how much space are allocated for each channel. Like when I was editor of SAP journal, like we used to have like 400 pages in a year, and we used to have a quarterly journal. But now I don't know like what's the status of the journal, and so we cannot go beyond like 100 pages. So 100 pages means like roughly 8 to 10 articles in an issue. So we need to keep a track of like how much we could publish as an editor. All the editors has that kind of obligation that even if they want, even so there is still a backlog. So sometimes you see that forthcoming articles in the journal. So the volume number, the issue number is not being issued. It's like out of press, just still that's okay from a researcher perspective, that of course volume number could be added later, but still there are almost more than 13.4 millions is being submitted each year. That's quite a lot of number, and except some of the top journals, you're going to see that the rejection rate is somewhere 30 to 40% or 50% maybe. For the top channels before review, it's like 70%. So 30% are sent back to the reviewers, like for peer review process. So what are the benefits? Benefits of an open access is it increases its visibility. That means the citation score of individual researchers gets increased. Drives innovation because it's quick global impact. People across the world can access it. Public access, and comply with the funder policies. So there is there is transparency there. So nothing blocks someone to access the whole aspect. So this gives an added advantage of open access, but at the same time we need to think about with a pinch of salt that this guy spent $2,000 for publishing a paper in a journal, whether we should accept it. Like in Indian Minister of Management or IIT, they say that we are not going to accept any journal where article processing fee is involved. So that's one thing we should be aware of. So it varies from the perspective of research from country to country, from governing bodies of the universities or autonomous research organization, like what kind of belief or perception they have regarding online or open access publications. Next thing is predatory publishers. So sometimes even we also get those kind of emails almost every other week that, okay, we are very much impressed with your this publication. So we are a journal and we are trying to help you out to publish your paper quickly within a month or so. And this is the amount that you need to pay. It's per page. Sometimes it's like the total lump sum 1,500, whatever the rate is. But it is very much harmful in academia because predatory journals are not treated well across in academics or across in scientific research. So what is quick fact check that you can do in order to identify like who are predatory journals and who are not? So if you look at here, it's predatory journals.com. Like there would be a number of list of predatory journals which are listed here. There is other one is Bill's list. So where you can find publishers misleading metrics, etc., where you can find those lists as well. Quickly you should be aware of, or you should just like stay away from those kind of predatory journals. But so far we didn't talk about what kind of journal you are going to aim for your publication. We'll come to later in the next half how we are going to select what kind of journal you look at. But these are the general fact that you should be aware of before submitting your paper for publication. So how to quickly cross-check what are the predatory journals, or how you can identify, okay, this is a predatory journal. Quick check. So no standard identifier, ISSN or DOI number is not given. Even it's very laughable that some of the people who are running those kind of predatory channels, they don't even properly know. So once you try searching on ISSN number, you can pretty quickly find that some of them doesn't exist. Some of them say that we are listed with Scopus, etc. Once you cross check it, there is no trace of the channel in the Scopus list. Sometimes you look at the emails from where they are coming, mostly either Gmail or Yahoo or Hotmail. They don't even have a domain name. So that will give you a hint that it might be a predatory journal. Second thing is the journal scope. Scope of the journal is too wide. It simply means that the journals is normally what the good journals across the world, across the field, you will see that they are very narrow focused, specific to a context or specific to a subject or specific to an idea or specific to an area. So the predatory journals are broad based. They are not narrow. It's like, okay, we are going to talk about, okay, management science. Now, I don't know whether it's predatory or what that kind of name exists or not. And it could take into account anything related to management. So you should be very much careful because those, that's why the scope is kept wide open so that they can attract most of the papers from different fields. Sometimes those are not related at all, and it's just to give a platform for publications. Transparency. Sometimes, like if you look at that, they are going to say that, okay, the article processing fee is this much. Sometimes they will say that per page. Sometimes they will say that you need to pay 20% upfront and 80% once it is accepted. There is no clear-cut guidelines what would be the article processing fees. Whereas in an open access journal, there is a clear instructions what would be the article processing fee, how much you need to pay, when you need to pay, etc. Everything is given. But here in the website, there is no clear-cut instructions. Next is even if they claim that their indexing is here, their indexing is there, like Scopus International or DOAG Director directory of open access journals, etc., etc. But when you look at carefully, you'll see that some of those are false, and some of the links that they said they they are very deceptive in nature. So eventually, some of the journals names are actually almost synonymous with the original journals. Journal of Service Research and Journal of Services Research is almost similar. As a young researcher, probably you will not be aware of this, and that's why they fall prey to those predatory journals. Sometimes what happens, you are going to find sometimes emails from submissions or asking for submissions of paper, submission of research paper, and they are coming from Gmail, Yahoo institutional mails. What happens, sometimes there are guest editors, sometimes there are volume editors, they do those kinds. So whenever you see an email from Yahoo or Rediff or Hotmail or Gmail, not necessarily you should be too suspicious. You need to dig a little bit better and a little bit more to make sure that you are not falling prey to the hands of predatory journals. So we should be the Dana, and we started laughing after that. Okay, yeah, I don't know how come those people are able to get access to those email IDs. So that's one of the challenge that we have in identifying the proper or right address of editors or in invitation for submission of articles. So after saying all this, now let's talk about like what the criteria you are or you should consider for selecting a journal. First thing is aim and scope. So each journal has, in the beginning, it's written about the journal section that what is the aim of the journal and what is the scope of the journal. So that can give you a clear idea that whether your research is fit for the journal. Okay, by the way, there are two ways to look at the research. Okay, one is like once you finish up writing your own research, you do literature review, you do empirical analysis, you do modeling, and you try to look for journals which is more suitable with respect to your research. On the other hand, the other one is you target a journal and you follow the journal pattern, type of article is published, and you modify your research. But this one is like when you little bit more experience in terms of research. So those um, avenues or those type of publication is not relevant for a budding researcher, because here mostly the audience I guess is more of a budding researchers or young researchers, or they are just like in the field. This gives you an idea that try to come up with own research, and of course after following the due process, and try to match a suitability excuse me, uh, match your research with the aims and scope of the journal. Now there are like thousands of journals. How we are going to match it? We are going to come to that as well, like how we are going to narrow down with specific to your research. But you should be careful that aim and scope of the journal is very much important, because in most of the cases what we see is that the researcher or the author doesn't even read the journal where they are submitting the manuscript, what kind of article is being published in the last few volumes. They don't follow, and they just thought that okay, it's like management type of research, so I should submit it, and eventually it gets rejected. So it's not the editor's fault, I would say here. It's the author's or the researcher's fault, because he didn't study. So searching a journal is also an important task before submitting your paper, because it might get rejected just because the aim and scope doesn't match with your research idea or your research paper. Second thing is author's guideline. Each journal has, of course, the publication house has a unique style for a particular type of journal, and each publication house has different sets of rules for authors. For science, it's different. For commerce and management, it's a little bit different. For mathematics or physics, it's a little bit different. But when you try to look at the author's guideline in each journal, it's written like, okay, what font they required, how the referencing should be done, okay, whether each section would be numbered or whether each section should not be numbered, whether it would be a justified format or whether it's just left alignment, no justification is required. Is it like 12 font? Is it 10 font, 11 font? Uh, so there are indent. So each paragraph should start with a 5-point indent. So those are like different types of instruction that are given to the authors. And if you don't follow, they outright reject those submissions. Time to publish is very important, or frequency of how often they are publishing. Is it like quarterly, half yearly, or yearly journal? Because mostly as a budding researcher, so the quality as well as quantity both matters. For a senior faculty professors, the quantity doesn't matter. For a budding researchers, quality as well as quantity matters. So you need to keep a balance between quality and quantity. The same way, as a result, you need to look at the frequency of publication of the journal. So even if you see that okay, one journal is very much renowned in your own field, but you have to wait for a year to have a decision whether it was sent out to the reviewers or not. Sometimes there are 3 or 4 reviewers, like Nature 5 reviewers are there. So you need to look at how many reviewers are there. Of course, the review process of the journal is like standard procedure, all of the journals followed. So there should not be any complaint about that. But at the same time, you need to remember that how quickly the paper gets published. That's an important aspect given where you are right now. Are you a budding researcher or are you an established researcher? Impact factor. So all of us are very much influenced by the term impact factor. So what is the impact factor of a journal? Because the higher the impact factor, we believe that those are like the best in their own field. Like for cancer research, it's like more than 50. Nature, it's like 24, 25. For management, it's 8 or 9. That's American Economic Review, and that's more than enough. So it varies from life science, pharmacy, the impact factor sometimes 10, 11, 12, 13. For management or social science, the impact factor are 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, not more than that. So if you try to compare like with life science or with pharmacy, with management, it would not be doing a good justice. But each area or each field should be aware of okay, the impact factor for a journal, because this gives you credence of so it's kind of signaling. So I heard or I know that most of you from economics or management, you heard of Michael Spade's signaling theory. for which he was awarded Nobel. I don't remember the year. So it gives you a signal that you are well versed in research, as your publications are having impact factor journals. But how impact factor is calculated, most of the researchers is not aware of. They only heard that what impact factor is all about. Let me give you quickly an example of that. Okay, so let's think about the definition is that the number of papers being published in the last 2 years and the number of citations that happen between the last 2 years of those papers, and it's the ratio of that. So think about this. So number of citation that happens in 2013 is 6 and 2012 is 8. So this is like total citation that happened is 8, and number of paper published in the journal is 2013 is 10 and 2012 is 12. So that's 22. So the impact factor would be citation of the recent last 2 years, that's 8, and total number of publication, that's 22. So 8 by 22, it's like 36.364. So 0.364 is okay. So if it is more than 0.5 in the management and social science, it's pretty decent, I guess. So that's how impact factor is calculated. So it's the number of citation from the last 2 years of the paper published divided by total number of publication in the last 2 years, or total number of article published in the last year. That's how we calculate the impact factor. Now, if you look at here, there is another thing is journal citation reports or Web Science. You can, if you wish to have just like 2 minutes of video, I hope that all of you can. What happened?
So actually the video might play, but people will not be able to hear the sound. Is there a sound associated with that as well?
Yeah.
So the video will, everybody will be able to hear it and see it only if I have it downloaded and with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What I can do is we can share the link with everyone once the session is over with my follow-up email.
Okay. So it is
Thank you.
like what the video is talking about is like how they collect data, and after collecting data, what are the different kinds of transaction journal metrics they prepare, and what are the relevance that is talking about. It's like 2-minute video, so we are not going to. So there are other things that we should also look at. This is ACIMA Go journal and country ranking, which talks about, okay, for each field, what are the different types of journal, what are their impact factors, and what are the quartiles that journal belongs to. So these days quartile rank of journals is being getting from, so like in my university, like we follow the quartile ranks of journals rather than impact factor. Of course, impact factor and quartiles are relevant and interdependent with each other, because the quartiles are based on the impact factor in that particular field. So there would be no discrepancy as such between like the management journal with marketing journal with let's say sociology journal with physics journal or medicine journal. So the quartile ranks are offered by area wise, or law or social work or safety research, public administration, etc., etc. So each area is being covered, and you know that where the journal is ranked. Is it the top quartile like 25% or bottom quartile Q4 or Q1 or Q2 and Q3? So you know the quartile system, top 25%, 50, 75, 100. So that's how we look at the quartile. So that also gives you a pretty good idea. So if you don't fall with the impact, so I know journals which falls into the quartile 2, but it still doesn't have an impact factor. So of course it is, that's why I said impact factor comes after 1 year, whereas this gets updated every quarterly or every half yearly, I guess, and that gives you an indication that quarterly or quartile ranking of journal is more appropriate in order to identify like where the journal stands with specifics to the area that a researcher is interested in or doing research in that particular field. And next is acceptance rate. So of course, as a young researcher, we need to get the publication first, and need to get that it gets reject, it doesn't get reject. So those two things is very important. At the same time, we also need to look at like where the journal ranks in terms of in the domain of a particular research. So in some of the top journals, you'll see that the rejection rate is 90%. In some other journals, it's 50% rejection rate. However, the desk rejection rate is very much need to be aware of, because that means what, people are submitting their research which is not relevant, or the editor feel that it is not the quality that is desired or that is suitable for the journals. If you look at here, the Scopus is the largest collection of all the papers or all the journals that's being published in papers. Elsevier, Springer, Wiley, Taylor Francis, Sage, Walter Kluwer, every top journals that you can name it, a publication house. So Scopus would be the most narrow down starting point to search or for a search for a journal rather than Springer or Elsevier, because Elsevier is constituting only 10% of the journal, whereas Springer 8%, so 20%. Whereas if you look at the Scopus, it accommodates all the publication houses as well as other publication houses. So your first point to start searching, looking for journal is Scopus. That's my suggestion. So what are the tools that are available to you to find a journal? So after knowing all this, let's come to like what are the tools the researcher or a author has in their kitty to find a suitable match. So there is a book called A Suitable Bride, and there's a movie on that as well, by Meera Nair, and it's a famous book as well. So how we are going to find a suitable journal? It's not a suitable boy, but a suitable journal. Of course, for a researcher, that's more precious than a bride. So here we go. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so there are 7, in fact 8 websites are there where you can take help. And what you need to do, you need to cut, copy, paste the abstract of your research, the title of your research, and the keywords of your research. So or JEL codes in some findings. So we can start with biothematic.org, Jane, then Eden Jennings says this is like Japanese website. Journal Finder, Elsevier, Dickinson University, Gomberg Library, University of San Francisco Library, Abisco, and Springer. So these are like different portals where you can get help from finding a match between your research as well as the journal's requirement. So it will give you exactly, okay, what are the match, and from the given match, let's say out of 3,000 journals, it shorts down to 100 journals. Now, out of that 100 journals, then the next step is, of course, you are able to avoid 2,900 journals. At least you narrow down to 100 journals. Out of 100 journals, you need to look at, okay, quartile rank, impact factor, processing time, rejection rate, um, what else? Yeah, and of course you need to give a feedback from your research community, whether it could be your advisor, whether it's your peer researcher, or whether someone you know who is working in that field, that okay, what's your opinion about this journal. So if you look at here, so I'm going to share the PPT as well if someone needs it. So it's journal authors, name and estimator. It's bosemantic.org, Jane. And here you just write down your abstract and title, and you are going to find the similar match which would be appropriate for your journal. Then we have your Aidan's expert publishing editing house, where you write down the relevant words of your this is a Japanese, like Japanese authors, Japanese researchers use a lot. Next is Elsevier. So Elsevier has a portal where you write down your paper title, you write down or cut, copy, paste the abstract, and which field of research that you are basically interested in. That is going to give you a narrow down or filter is open access, whether you want only open access as well. So this is how you can search in Elsevier as well. So you can have then University of San Francisco, you can find the same journal filters. Then you have NSU libraries, yeah, Nova University is, there is one atosevosco.com. You can find the relevant just title, all titles, constant, those you can limit the searching options as well to find out like what exactly the relevant or suitable journals that are matching with your manuscript. Springer, they already has a search option and match as well, and the link in the top is given as well. And there is another one is PubShare. So PubShare is a professional as well as free versions is there. So normally I use this one, and free version is pretty helpful to narrow down as well. They have a professional version as well to clearly pinpoint the top 5 journals, which is very much suitable or relevant to your research. So I normally try at PubShare to make sure that the relevant journals, I'm targeting the relevant journals, not the other ones which is not too much relevant to my research papers. So quick checklist is every researcher should do yes or no, whether so does the subject of your article match the journal subject focus? That's aims and objective. Aims, yeah. So does the journal accept the article type? So whether you have a case study, whether you have an empirical paper, whether you have a research paper, or whether you have a review paper, whether you have a literature review paper. So you need to make sure that like you are submitting the right kind of research to the right channel. So maybe if let's say economic letters normally doesn't accept review papers. They are very much particular about empirical papers. Is the journal read by your target audience? So you can look at, okay, like who are the readers of this channel? Like, is it the same kind of people that you fall in that group, or is it like someone in the hierarchy, or is it someone reputed researchers, or like the type of article that are being cited, or the type of article that's being published in those channels? You can have a look at that. Is the journal included in the bibliographic and subject-specific databases? Like, does those are included? Does the journal have an online version, or is it have a offline version only? Is the journal's impact factor or quartile rank is what you are looking at? Sometimes as a budding researcher, you will feel that, okay, if at a young age like 20, 25, you can publish in a cell biology, which has a 50 ranked, like that could be a wonders for your career. But it takes lots of hard effort, guts, to wait for 2-3 years to get published. And I know one of my friends who was working with, who passed out from Princeton University, working in Boston University. He was given time to publish 3 years to publish one paper in Econometrica. And eventually, after 2 reviews, his paper got rejected. And eventually it got published in American Economics Review, but Econometric is highest in game theory because that's his area of research. And after 3 years, he had to lose the job. So you need to set up your own impact factor borderline. What is your requirement, and what are the journals is offering? So is the journal where people are publishing their research in that field? You can search in the people who are working in your field and whether they have publication in that journal or not. How long it does take to get it published? How often it publishes? Frequency, is it quarterly, monthly, bi-monthly, etc.? Are there any publication charges? And sometimes a journal has a limitation of the number of words people can include. Is it like 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, or 3,000? So are there any limit or structure? Like what kind of structure is the journal is looking at? So that should be kept in mind as well. One author, famous Professor Stephen Ball, editor of Journal of Education Policy, once said that some of the people who send papers simply send it to the wrong journal, and that's become increasingly the case. And it's surprising how many people submit papers clearly never having read the journal, never opened a page of the journal, or read the website that it is the journal's interest in. And increasing, as a managing editor, I am fielding papers at the initial stage which would never sent out for review and write back, and I am say sorry, this doesn't fit within the remit of the channel. So you all are advised to be careful, that make sure you read the aims and scope of a channel before send out your paper. That's a caution, or that's an advice to all the budding researchers. And why this rejection? And you'll see that the common high impact journals, even Science has over 70% before review, and PLOS ONE, this is open access journal, rejects 30% before review. So if your paper is going for review, that means what? You did something positive contribution in that field. But if it is getting rejected, that's a heartbroken news, and you need to work again. Probably it's not that your work is not worthy, it's just that it doesn't match with the journal's scopes, aims, requirements. What are the normal phenomena, or what are the normal reasons? It's out of scope, fit, style, journal objective, novelty. There is no novelty in the research, fraud, sometimes plagiarism, Remember that all the budding researchers, plagiarism is a severe academic crime. So always avoid it. If you don't know, take one sessions of plagiarism. You can go to YouTube, or you can search in Emerald Publication House, where they are talking about plagiarism, how to avoid plagiarism. And missing part, sometimes researchers are also careless, where they don't insert the figures where it is supposed to, a reference didn't add it, or they are not arranged in proper orders. So those are the common mistakes like people do. So when you submit, these are the things you should keep in mind. And this table, a checklist. So these two are more important. And now I would like to thank the organizers, and I look forward to hear your questions and comments. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. Now I think what we'll do is we'll take care of the questions.
Okay.
So the first question, I think this is something that we get commonly asked. The question is for PhD students who are into early stage of their research career. Is advisable to straight away start with A-star journals, or when we first target UGC care listed and we get first-hand experience, to get first-hand experience?
Okay. So my suggestion is, like, forget about the A-star or like A or all those things. First is try to create a name, like the number is better at the beginning rather than like the quality. So that's what they look at. If you have like 5 publications at a decent like B or let's say even C or impact factor Scopus journals, that okay. But instead of like A, why shouldn't I like aim for a journal which has 10 impact factor? It will take 3-4 years to publish. And even like these days, I don't want to say it, but there are lots of discriminations happens in the publication world. So some of the authors is already aware of. So I would not suggest anyone to always hit. Of course, if they are willing, they can, but there is a chance that it might get rejected after 6 or 8 months of wait, and eventually it would be frustrating. So that's my suggestions to all the PhD scholars or authors.
Does anyone from the panel want to weigh in on this?
Yes, Disha, I do agree with Professor Moon Moon Haque. What he said is 100% correct. So we can move to the second question now.
Okay, thank you. So the second question is, when we talk about Scopus or Springle journals, it is always necessary that we only connect primary data, or we can take a series of literature reviews and write secondary paper, research paper as well.
Okay, so in research paper, like, it doesn't matter whether you are focusing on primary data or secondary data. So what I would say is, as long as the idea, the topic is innovative, it doesn't matter what kind of data you are using. So the concept or idea is more important rather than the data. And in order to hit or in order to target a decent journal, I don't think they are prejudiced towards a particular kind of data, primary, secondary, time series, etc. As long as like you are saying something which is concrete, innovative, new to the field, I think they are going to accept it.
Right. Wonderful.
Yes,
Um,
yes. In addition to what Professor Moon Moon Haque said, so I do agree with him. In addition to that, as he clearly explained, what journals are looking for, it is not about your primary data or secondary data. So the data collection should be in line with the research problem at your hand. So based on the research problem or research objectives, you can design what sort of data you can gather in order to proceed with the study. So it doesn't matter whether you are proceeding with the systematic literature review or empirical data. So you can proceed with that in accordance with the research problem at your hand. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jayantha. Yeah.
okay. The next question is that there are many international conferences or seminars which collaborate with reputed journals, but sometimes if we participate and send our manuscript, the review process gets delayed. So should we always collaborate with conferences or choose a journal as per our choice?
Okay. So I have a negative thought about conference participation. So conference participation is not only about like presenting a paper, it's more of a doing networking. It's more about learning what kind of research people are doing. So it's not whether it's accepted or not accepted. So you need to know what's going on in your own field. So conference is a place you get to meet good researchers, reputed researchers in your field. At the same time, like what other peer groups is doing, what kind of research, that gives you an idea. So that's the major objective of a conference. Of course, review in India or in Pakistan or some of the Asian countries where we see that the review process for a conference is not that strong, but in some of the Western countries where they organize conference to give feedback, and that's the reason that it is substantive, and that's why it takes a little bit longer time for the authors to get, because like when I participated in Southern Economic Association conference or American Health Economic Promotion conference, the number of submission and number of publication and number of acceptance is the ratio is less than 50%. So it's not about journal, it's like more about giving a constructive, even if they are rejecting the paper, they give reason why they are rejecting, like not like Indian perspective, or I'm not criticizing the Indian organizers, but specifically that's the phenomena that we observe, that all the papers get accepted, and it's like more of a, it's not even networking. So in the last 5-6 years, I didn't go any conference in India, honestly speaking. So that's my perception. Other people have their own perceptions, so they are feel free to voice their own opinions.
I guess
Professor Moon, I also do agree with your point. If you are an early career researcher, so you can start writing to the conferences. From conferences, you can get feedback. You can develop your manuscript to the publishable level. So that's why conferences are held. So, but if you are a researcher who is publishing a lot with journals, so instead of going with conferences, you can directly write to journals. As a researcher, I started my career probably in 2012, 2013. I started writing for conferences, and I received so many good comments from that. And from that, I developed my research papers and submitted to good journals. That's how it works. If you are early career researcher, so conferences that will provide you additional, benefit in developing your research papers. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Okay, so the next question is that they are asking, how can one get selected to be on the review board? Is there any eligibility criteria? Please guide.
Okay. So in order to be in the review board, I would suggest that you need to have publication at least in that journal or similar sort of journal in order to become a reviewer, or in order to become a associate editor, or let's say subjects expert in that particular journal. In like what happened once, like I was recommended like to a particular journal, and the journal editor, even if you have a good terms, honestly speaking, said that okay, he doesn't have any publication in that journal, so my nomination for the editorial board or for a subject expert was rejected by the editor itself. So what I would suggest, if you want to become a editor, reviewer, or let's say associate editor or subject matter expert, if that's the aim of an researcher, is make sure that you have publication in that journal or similar sort of journal in that particular field. So that's one of the suggestions. Okay. Yeah.
Great. We have another question where the reader has asked that should we avoid journals with an ISSN number but they do not have a DOI?
So as I said, like first thing, I would say that Scopus is like one of the highest depository of indexing journals. So if it is not listed in the Scopus, I would suggest whether they have DOI or whether they have ISSN, try to avoid those kind of journals. So only focus on listed journals which are either in Scopus or in ABDC if you are relevant, if your research is relevant to management.
Wonderful. The next question is, could the pediatric journals be listed in Schemago?
So in Schemago, they checked it before putting out rank and quartile ranks. So in Schemago, if it is not found in Schemago, that means they might be a predatory journal, and predatory journals are not listed in ACIMMRGO.
Right. What are those journals that are not under Web of Science or Scopus, but they say that they are good?
So if you don't find them, whether they are not listed in Scopus or Web of Science, ask your seniors or ask the people who are working in that field, ask their opinion. That would be the best suggestion I could give. Instead of like taking a personal single point of view, ask other people in that field who are working. Okay, what's your opinion about a particular journal? That I said during the presentation, that you should take a second opinion or third opinion from the seniors or from the experts who are working in that field. What's their opinion?
Right. Now the question is that what is the difference between Scopus journal database and Schemago journal ranks?
Okay, Scopus is much more wider, whereas Schemago is limited to the subject or subject areas, and it rank also by country wise. So that's the one special feature, that Schemago is basically focused on the quartile ranks, whereas Scopus is not. They are either impact factor or they looked at the acceptance, download, all those factors, but they are I would say the quartile ranks is the main difference. Second thing is Scopus has a more wider database compared to ACI Imago, which is very much limited to the subject area specific to the world or to a specific region or to a specific country.
Thank you. Another question is, for which journals can researchers from Sri Lanka request for an article processing fee waiver? And could you please give some examples?
So I don't have much idea about like the journals that are coming out of Sri Lanka, but Professor Jayantha might be able to give more insight about the publication process or the types of journal that is coming out from Sri Lanka. So I would hand over the question to Professor Jayantha if he could give some lights.
Yes. Disha, what is the question? Can you repeat it?
Oh, yes. The
Disha,
question
can you
is,
repeat the question?
yeah. The question is that can we give names of journals where researchers in Sri Lanka can request for a article processing fee waiver?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can give the link. It's like United Nations list of countries where the income is, I think, the bottom 30 countries. Each region was Africa, Latin America, Asia, and it's written in their website, journal website, that like who falls in that category. I think Sri Lanka falls and Bangladesh falls in that category.
Yes.
So
As you correctly stated, Dr. Moon. Yes,
yeah.
as you correctly stated, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, and few other countries are in that list. So that is recognized as underdeveloped countries. So we can apply for the waiver for the APC.
Yeah.
In addition to the United Nations,
it's already mentioned. It is supposed to be mentioned in the journal website. If someone is asking for article processing charges, like what are the process and how they can apply for waiver, it should be mentioned in the journal website.
In addition to that, United Nations, there are few other bodies who are granting these facilities. So if you log into the journal, you can find out the information. So if you are eligible, you can find out the details by looking at the countries and all. So there are criteria mentioned in the journal website.
Yeah.
So we have a question where someone has asked us, how can I increase my citations?
Okay, so that's like one trick. I don't know, honestly speaking. Is ask the friends to cite your paper if it is relevant to them, and like put it in different social networking sites like in LinkedIn, Academia, ResearchGate, academia.edu, wherever, like people can access it, and that will increase the citation. So ResearchGate, Academia, LinkedIn, even Facebook, or even Instagram, like try to, whenever you publish something, you put it, people can access it, and if you make it available at least the first page of your publication in Academia or ResearchGate, people can search it and they will be able to find it. And one additional thing is, like, try to search your name or the article by yourself in your own Google browser often. So that is going to, so Google is going to understand, okay, someone is searching your name, or maybe like wherever you are accessing, you can search that name. So that is going to give you a little higher rank when people try to search the paper or try to search so those kind of research.
Right.
Yeah, excellent answer, Professor Moon. So the magic behind increasing the citation is increasing the visibility itself. So if it is open access journal, where what you have to do is you have to increase the visibility by putting your paper into different databases, as Dr. Moon clearly mentioned, ResearchGate, academia.com, Not only that, in addition to that, we can use social media in enhancing our visibility. So if it is an open source journal, so we can upload our paper even. So
Yeah.
the best answer is increasing the visibility. Yes, I agree with you.
Right. Thank you. The next question is that sometimes a journal is paid and
Sorry,
shown.
sorry, Disha. One more thing, like in your
Yes,
Twitter,
yes, please.
like use a hashtag and use the keywords in your publication. So in the future, if someone is searching, that Twitter hashtag is going to get connected in Google search. So that is going to help you as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. So the next question is that sometimes journal is paid and shown in Scopus index list, but after some time it is out of the Scopus list. Even some conferences promise to publish the paper in Scopus index journals, and they do it, but those journals disappeared from the Scopus list. What to do in that scenario?
Okay. So when a conference is claiming that the publication would be under Scopus list, you can ask them, does they have an agreement with Scopus? Sometimes sometimes the organizer will say that, okay, we are in the process, etc. If they are claiming it, don't believe it, because I also faced this kind of situation with one of my colleagues. So they said that like it is going to be Scopus index, but eventually there is a financial transaction that happened between Scopus and the organizers, and eventually the organizer backed out that they will not be able to afford to pay like 1.2 lakhs or something, and the Scopus said that then we are not going to publish it. And that's happened in some of the cases. I would not say that all the organizers, but in some cases that happened. And if it is an agreement, legal agreement between Scopus and the organizers, it is going to stay in their website. It will not evaporate. But if it is just for sake of publicity, that it would be Scopus indexed. And one more thing, like I would always suggest that, like, don't aim for publication in journal proceedings. Always ask or always aim for journals, not journal or conference proceedings. So conference proceedings is not a good idea for publication. But if you really want that, or if you really require that there is some requirements, then go ahead. Otherwise, like, don't trust those kind of false promises, or like cross check, double cross check that, like, do you have an agreement, and ask those comments in emails, not over phone or WhatsApp, so that if you have a record, you can kind of sue, or you can kind of like say that, okay, this is what happened.
Right. So the next question that we have is that if a paper is published without open access journals, can we still share it openly in our Google Scholar profile, ResearchGate, Academia, etc.?
No. If there is a copyright protected, then you are only allowed to share only the first page, where the name, abstract, and all those things. The rest, the full article, is not allowed to be shared. This is unethical and violation of copyright agreement.
Great. Now, the next question is, can the early career researcher be a corresponding author, or does any academia personnel should be the corresponding author to increase acceptance?
As a rule of ethics, I'd say that the person who did the most work should be the corresponding author. But the tradition here in some of the developing countries is that the advisor become the corresponding author without doing or without contributing much. So that's not the tradition in some of the Western countries, where the student become the corresponding author, the first author, and advisor become the second or third author. So it varies from where or what kind of academic environment you are in. But I would say from an ethical point of view, it's the person who has the major contribution should always be the first author or corresponding author.
Thank you. Now, there are two questions by the same person, so I'll ask them because I think they can be responded simultaneously. Now, the first question is that how are journals published by MDPI, which charge APC, are they equally reputed? And also, they have mentioned that for universities that mandate PhD scholars to publish in reputed and high-ranked journals, only to be eligible for thesis submission, please provide a few suggestions for early career researchers as to how they can meet the high expectations of universities.
Okay, like if the researcher has the guts, ask the advisor how many publications he or she has in A-ranked or high impact fact journals. First thing, when he was like budding researchers, that's one thing. Second thing is, as per like if you are doing research in UGC recognized universities, the UGC has a guideline that if it is a Scopus index, that should be acceptable. I don't think any university has those kind of targets that you will have to publish A category, only then it will be accepted. I don't think any university has those kind of guidelines. And like as a researcher or as a budding researcher, I don't expect that someone is going to publish in A star in his like early years of research.
Dr. Moon, I am Professor Athula from Sri Lanka. The some universities, they have some requirements. For example, some universities in China, they have mentioned you have to have 2 publications in index journals, maybe Scopus. Then if you present your findings in conference, the conference would be indexed. There are some such requirements. The universities has mentioned this requirement in their maybe handbook or their bylaws. It has become a mandatory requirement. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Scopus is okay. Any Scopus listed journal is okay, but the university cannot say that you have to publish an A star in order to get a PhD. It could be like it.
That's correct. Yes. Yes.
They could make it mandatory for tenure track faculty that unless you published in A star, your tenure would not be renewed. But for a PhD student, they cannot make it mandatory. Even in some of the Western countries, they don't need a requirement that you have to publish it before completing your PhD. As long as the PhD advisory committee feels that it is as good as a publishing material, you will be awarded a PhD.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
So publication is a requirement that is the criteria that are applied to some of the Asian countries, not in Northern America. Even if you are doing a PhD from Harvard University or Princeton University, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to publish it and then you are going to get a PhD degree. As long as the PhD advisory committee feels that the writing or the thesis is as good as a publishable material, you will be awarded a PhD. That's what will happen with me as well.
Yeah, that is correct, Dr. The Moon. However, as the scholars, if we can present our PhD work in conferences, we can get input. That we can improve our research study. Then at the same time, when we are in first or second year, if we can publish our papers in high quality journals, then again it will go through a review process. Then again we will learn. Yeah, then we can learn. We can improve our research study. I think this will be the reasons, rather than put in some requirement you should have publication in a ranked journal. So yeah, but the purpose would be the improve the quality of the research and other things, getting experience.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have someone. Oh, yes, please, sir.
Yes, so the question was, how are journals published by MDPI which charge APC? Are they equally reputed? To answer that question, I think MDPI, so that is for the multidisciplinary digital publishing institute in Switzerland. So they are charging APC. So under that, the asker is asking about, are they equally reputed? So in order to see whether these journals are reputed, you can check whether these journals are indexed in Scopus, ABDC, or SSCI or SCI, whatever indices. In addition to that, I can remember that there are some journals published by MDPI. They are listed in Scopus and ABDC. For instance, if you take sustainability journal, that is listed. So there are few, but with regard to the submission of your article to such journals, so you have to go back to their history. How long will it take to the final decision? How long will it take to the reviewing process? What are the indices they do have? So in terms of reputation, you have to determine these aspects as well. So thank you very much. So we can have the second question, Disha, now.
Yes. Hello.
We can have the second question now.
Yes, yes. Right. One second. There's so many people who are writing their questions now. We have someone. I think they must be facing issues with their guide, because they have written that in a PhD, if a guide claims himself or herself as the first author, but they have not really done anything except guiding the scholar, so is it ethical? Or do we need to raise our voice? Should the scholar raise a voice against this unethical thing? What
I
should
think
they do?
it's perfectly all right to raise their voice. Otherwise, like, this practice is supposed to be go on and on. There should be an end to that. And Indian guides or Indian PhD advisors should keep that in mind, that it is not none of their business to become first author without contributing nothing. So this practice has to end. And that's
Yes,
why I don't. That's why I don't. That's why I don't like the Indian way of doing, like, the PhD system, where they exploit the students, and without doing nothing, they become the first author of all the papers.
yeah, that is correct. Really, the students should be the first author. Then, no doubt. Then ethically, then the students should be the first author. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think because the guide they are the ones who have, how do I say, they have the power to accept, reject, sign for your thesis. It becomes difficult for someone to raise power when they are the deciding factor whether their PhD will get published or not.
I
And
perfectly agree with Disha. But of course, those guides are very much powerful.
yeah,
But what happens if you are able to publish it? The guide cannot, like, without, like, stopping it. They had to sign it.
yeah,
They
they have.
published it. Fulfill the right. And the thing is, we don't want to have want to go quarreling with the advisor, because you need recommendations, and that's what they exploit, and that's how they take undue advantages.
Right. We hope we have more scholars who are able to raise a strong voice against this, because we've heard this question a number of times, and we've seen people struggle as well.
Yeah, in
We
some
must.
of the new, in some of the, I can talk about, like, some of the new Indian universities, like IIC, or let's say JNU. Some of the universities, they are following the Western pattern. So where,
Right.
like, students gets the priority, but some of the traditional universities where
Yes.
the supervisor is more powerful, it's still the same old system. So there is no change.
So someone has written about reviewing articles. They say that they have been reviewing articles for some time, and they've been doing it since 2015. But for latest articles, they are not getting any. They're not getting any latest articles. In that case, what should they do? They need some advice.
Okay, so like what happened? Like every editor has access to rank the reviewers. So whether they are doing it prudently, whether they are going through all the details of reviewing, or is it just like superficial general comments? So based on the ranking of the journal editors, the reviewer gets ranked in a particular area, and based on the requirements of the journals, they get the papers. So maybe if someone is not getting papers of late, that means the prior work that he or she did is not up to the standard or is not able to satisfy the editor of the journal.
Right. Now, we have another person who has written that COVID-19 has touched many disciplines and created demand for published articles to guide decisions. Some journals take up to a year to publish articles. In this model of time frame, given the urgency and the speeding of how speedily they want the article to be published, how do they match? What are the effective actions that they should take?
Okay, so as I said, you need to always make a choice, like what is your objective? Okay, would you like to go for open access, or would you like to go for like closed access? Now for closed access, if you look at the frequency of publication is either at max quarterly, half yearly, or even yearly. So if you are submitting in a journal which the frequency level is twice a year, uh, and of course there will be a number of submissions as well, and if you feel that the journal would back their procedures for you, it would be unfair on your part to assume something like that. So you need to change your mindset, and you need to look at like the frequency of the journal, which is like quarterly, which is like bi-monthly or monthly. There are some good journals as well in the listed, like in Web of Science or Scopus, where you can aim rather than only looking for closed access or open access. So it can be like both. You need to look at the frequency of the journals. That's more important in your case if you feel that you need an urgency, rather than waiting for a submission in a closed access journal, which might take years, 1 year, sometimes 2 years as well. So that's not your priority. Your priority is quickly. So you need to look at the frequency of the journal rather than like top ranked journals. Some of the journals are very top ranked, which publishes, let's say, twice a year or so. So you need to make a switch from that option.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir, and everybody on the panel for giving us the time. I think these will be all the questions that we will be able to take today. I would like to invite Miss Shamika to please carry on with the vote of thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Disha, and very good afternoon, everyone. It is the end of another interesting session of the webinar series on writing impactful research, and I consider it as an honor to have been asked to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion. So, on behalf of the Emerald Publishing, Gulf Medical University, Faculty of Management Studies of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, and on my own behalf, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the main speaker of the session, Dr. Moon Moon Haque, Associate Dean, Associate Professor from the College of Healthcare Management and Economics, Gulf University. So I must say it was an insightful session, and as a young academic and a young researcher, I highly appreciate your effort in sharing your profound knowledge on how to select a suitable journal article for publications. Thank you very much, sir. And also, I would like to express my gratitude to the Faculty of Management Studies of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, headed by Professor Athula Gnanapala. Further, I would like to express my special gratitude to Professor Aslam, Chairman, and all the members of the Research and Publication Unit of the Faculty of Management Studies for their continuous support in this webinar series. And this session would not have been a success without the kind guidance and support of the regional coordinators. So I take this opportunity to thank the regional coordinators, in particular, the support rendered by Dr. Jayantha N, Dewasiri, Senior Lecturer, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, Ms. Sangeeta Menon, Publishing Relationship Manager, Emerald Publishing, Professor Sudhir Rana from Gulf Medical University, and Professor Kashif Said, Gift University, Pakistan. Then with the great gratitude, let me also thank Ms. Disha Lakhanpal, Regional Marketing Manager, Emerald Publishing Group, for the support rendered in making this event a great success. And with all the due respect, I thank to all the distinguished officials from Emerald Publishing, Gulf Medical University, and the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. Last but not least, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the audience, all the senior professors, senior academics, visiting faculty researchers, industry participants, partner university representatives, media presenters, research students for their active participation. So thank you very much, everyone, and stay safe.
So thank you very much, everyone. So next week we are going to have a session on understanding section and structure of literature review papers. So the session is to be delivered by Professor Sudhir Rana, one of our good friends and one of the members of the coordinating part. So thank you very much indeed, Professor Moon Moon Haque, for your excellent session today. So we'll meet up next week at 12:30 p.m. next Thursday on 10th June 2021. Have a good weekend.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Please have a nice day. Thank you.